Is this a quarterback that we can win a national championship with? And we're going to find out on Saturday when Will Howard and his Buckeyes go to face Oregon. College football has never been better. Interest has never been higher. Believe that we are at the dawn of the golden age of college football. It was an epic day of college football. It was one of those days where you fall in love with the sport all over again. What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Joel Klatt Show. I am Joel Klatt, and this show is presented by Hampton by Hilton. We've got a great one. We're previewing one of the great weeks in college football. We've all been waiting for this one. October 12th was always a date circled on our calendar, and it's not because it's a top 5 wedding date out there. In fact, if you scheduled your wedding for Saturday, you know what? I hope no one shows up. That might be a little bit harsh, but this is going to be an absolutely incredible day of college football, and I can't wait to get into these games. Hey, remember, wherever you're listening, rate and review our show, share it with a friend. Please do all of those things. And wherever you like to social media, we are there with our content at Joel Klatt Show, wherever you're at out there on the socials. And then on YouTube, that's where we want you to go. That's where we're driving you to go. Go to YouTube, subscribe to the show and the channel, leave a comment below, like the videos, and then we're going to have more and more stuff come out as YouTube exclusive. So even if you're just listening to this in your car, on your commute as a podcast, you're going to want to go to YouTube because there's going to be content that you won't be able to get just as a podcast. Okay, like I said, this is a date that has been circled for a long time. So if you were invited to a wedding on Sunday, don't show up. I think it's a pretty easy decision. If you did the right thing, as I told you back in the summer, and RSVP'd just a hearty no, good for you. Send them a nice gift and be done with it. If you didn't, and you actually said you would be at the wedding, don't show up. Don't show up. Send them a nice gift. You can even text them if you're really that close. It's going to be more impactful and special for that couple if you're still in their life a year from now or 2 years from now, rather than showing up at their wedding. I can just tell you from experience, there's going to be a lot of people at these weddings that the couple is never going to see again. And they get invited for whatever reason. And then guess what? You just lose track of them. So I'd say be a better friend than that. Don't show up to the wedding, but be there for them in life a year from now or 2 years from now. Look at that. We're just solving problems out here, and you get to go to your favorite game or sit on the couch and watch your favorite games, plural, because, again, the slate is incredible. Now, we happen to be on a bit of a heater here against the spread with the picks. And by a bit of a heater, I mean a massive heater. That's right. We are like John Daly out here firing darts around like you have no idea. 5-0 last week against the spread. Thank you. That's it. That's just a slow clap. Don't worry about that. 9-1 over the last 2 weeks. A little faster slow clap. There it is. And we're 21-11 right now on the season. That's 66%. So you're welcome. You're welcome. By the way, take some of your winnings and send a nice gift to whoever's wedding you're going to miss this Saturday. Let's get into it. Okay, so Gus and I are actually not going to be doing the big noon game. We're going to be doing a game out in Provo, Arizona and BYU. That's where Big Noon Kickoff is going to be. We're heading there. That's the 4 Eastern game, 2 p.m. local. BYU is off to a 5-0 start, and this is a team that was picked to finish 13th in the Big 12. 13th. Kalani Sitake, their head coach, has done a really good job getting this defense to a point where they're one of the best defenses in the conference. Okay, so this is not, I don't think that this is an anomaly. I don't think that this is a fluke that they are 5-0. I think that this is real. BYU's defense leads the Big 12 in yards per play allowed. I'm looking at their quarterback, Jake Retzloff. He's been really good. The offensive line, while banged up, has been decent for them. They're going to get healthier at running back. LJ Martin is coming back. He's the guy that they've really needed to be back at running back. Rapati steps back in, so they get 2 running backs back on their offense, but it's really a defensive-led team. And they're going to need that defense to go up against Arizona. Now, Arizona, up to this point, has, I think it's fair to say, been a disappointment with the way the expectations were leveled against this team coming in. Even though Jed Fish goes to Washington, Brent Brennan comes in as their head coach. you look up and it's like you still have Noah Fafita. You still have Teteroa McMillan, and the expectations were still there for them after a great year last year to come in and perform well in the Big 12. It hasn't necessarily materialized. I think that they are forcing it a bit on the offensive side. Fafita is turning the football over too much. There's too many turnover-worthy plays, but Teteroa McMillan is still one of the premier players in the country. This guy is, what is he, 6'5", 215 pounds. He's got excellent body control. He's got great hands. And while Fafita tries to force him the ball probably a little bit too much, he could probably stand to diversify the passing game just a little bit as far as distribution goes. It's still a guy that you've got to throw the football to. You've got to target Teteroa McMillan. In this matchup specifically, I think that they're going to have to target him not only early, but often. Not just because he's the best player, but because he is by far the best matchup on the field. Both corners for BYU stand at 5'11", and they are both under 175 pounds. So that's Jacob Robinson and Mark Collins. The matchup is there. Like I said, Teteroa McMillan is 6'5", 215 pounds. If Arizona is going to be successful, it's going to be on the back of the passing game. Fafita and Teteroa McMillan have to have a big day against what is right now the Big 12's best defense as far as yards per play allowed. It should be an interesting one. I've never actually done a game in Provo. This is going to be my first time to Lavelle Edwards Stadium, and I can't wait. I've heard so often from guys within the industry that this is one of the great environments in college football, and so I can't wait to. The last time I was in Provo, by the way, I was playing minor league baseball. The Angels had an affiliate in Provo. I was stationed in Idaho Falls with the Padres. Go Fathers. We have people in the control room that apparently were crying last night after the Dodgers loss here in Los Angeles. Apologies for just saying go Fathers. That's probably, I don't know, what do they call that? A microaggression these days. The Dodgers fans are soft around here. I don't know what to tell you. So Dodgers pods. And by the way, you're listening to this after the Wednesday night game. So we'll see what happens in that one. So that's Arizona BYU. Like I said, I can't wait for that. BYU ranks 14th in the country. And if they win this game, then you've got real eyes on that Big 12 championship and potentially getting a berth in that game. And then you're 60 minutes away from going to the college football playoff. This is why the expanded playoff is so incredible, is that you can have Arizona BYU in the middle of the season, and it's an impactful game for the playoff. We have not had that in previous seasons, and every week, all of you college football fans that were lamenting the expansion of the college football playoff should be eating your words, because all of these games have meaning. All of these games are still fantastic, and they're not losing their importance. All right, let's go on the road with the next one. This one's sponsored by Hampton by Hilton. When nothing else in life is 100% guaranteed, it matters where you stay. Hilton for the stay. Although, last week we were 100% guaranteed. Am I right? Am I 5-0? 5-0. By the way, I got some tweets out there. We had a guy parlay all 5 picks. That was a, what is it, minus 2,040 or 240, something along the. Again, I'm not a bettor. I've actually never bet 1 cent in my life, but he won like $250. So well done on 10. He bet 10 to win 250. You're welcome. That's how we do it. Okay, so Ohio State traveling out to Oregon. Massive game. I can't wait for this game. I'm disappointed we're not calling this game. Just call it what it is. A spade is a spade. We've known since the news that Oregon was going to join the Big Ten that this game was going to be a banger. And here we go. 2 versus 3 in the country. These two teams are clearly 2 of the best teams in the country. And let's hope that we get a game that lives up to the hype like we got with Alabama and Georgia. Autzen Stadium is one of the best environments in college football. It is fabulous up there. And Oregon is outstanding at home. Outstanding at home. In fact, if you look down, you'll realize that the Ducks have won 34 of their last 35 in Autzen Stadium. Their only loss was back in 2022 over that span to Washington. Okay? So the Ducks know how to get it done at home. Ohio State comes in, and let's face it, outside of maybe some questions at quarterback, and that's not a knock, but it's just kind of reality, I think that we all know that this is the best roster in the sport. Deep down, we know that to be true. They are veteran. They are talented. They've got young talent. And now Ryan Day is going to go cross country and put that talent to the test on the road. I cannot wait to see how Ohio State deals with this environment. Okay. Now, did Oregon play well early in the season? No. Are they getting much better? Yes. Do they have some warts in terms of like turnovers? Yes. But now Ohio State rolls in and we get a true test and a true picture, I think is the better way to put it, about what this team is going to be. And the reason is because on the road, you figure out and find out, I think is the more accurate way to put it, you find out about your quarterback. When you're on the road, you find out what that guy can do in a pressure-packed situation. He's dealing with the crowd noise. He's dealing with a really good Oregon defensive front. And so here's Will Howard, and this is his first true test. And all of Buckeye Nation have been waiting to see, is this real at the quarterback position? Is this a quarterback that we can win a national championship with? And we're going to find out on Saturday when Will Howard and his Buckeyes go to face Oregon. Oregon is a really good team, but they're not as talented as Ohio State. Ohio State won the line of scrimmage last week against Iowa on both sides of the ball. Their defense owned the line of scrimmage. Their offense owned the line of scrimmage. They ran the football for over 200 yards and over 5 yards a carry against Iowa, which never gives that up. Iowa's run defense is always a top 10 run defense in the country, and this year is no different. And yet, the Buckeyes owned that game at the line of scrimmage. Now, they made a couple of mistakes in the first half of that game, which is why it was 7-0 at halftime. They rolled off 4 straight scores to open the second half, and then it really wasn't a game after that. I think that the one thing that I've been impressed with most, and no one's talking about it, but it's going to pay huge dividends for the Buckeyes moving forward, is the fact that they have totally fixed and revamped their red zone offense. That was an issue the last few years. Red zone offense. And when I talk about red zone offense, I don't just talk about scoring percentage, because if you get to the red zone and they hold you to a field goal, that is a defensive win. I talk about touchdown percentage. And look at this. Ohio State has scored touchdowns on 21 of 22 red zone possessions. That's huge. That improvement is huge. Meanwhile, what's Oregon doing? Oregon has thrown 3 interceptions in the red zone in the last 2 games. And so this is not where it needs to be for Dillon Gabriel and the Oregon Ducks. Now, Oregon's line has very much improved from what they were at the beginning of the season. Remember, they were giving up far too many sacks and too many pressures for Dillon Gabriel early in the year. But they seem to have fixed that. They shuffled up the offensive line. They changed some guys around, namely at the guard center guard position. And now they have not allowed a sack in their last 3 games. So that reshuffle has certainly helped. You can also see that Dillon Gabriel is more comfortable and the ball is coming out of his hand much sooner. That's what I see when I watch the film. This is an Oregon team that their wide receivers are, I think, probably the best part of their offense. It's a great matchup against the Ohio State secondary. We're going to get to see if this Ohio State defensive line can get to Dillon Gabriel. Like I said, this is a phenomenal game, and I can't wait for it. Ohio State has no shortage of weapons. Jeremiah Smith, you know how I feel about him. He was number 5 in my Heisman list that I gave out yesterday. And I think with Ohio State's ability to run the football and throw the football, they're averaging 220 yards on the ground. You know what Ashton Jeanty did to this Oregon defense. Ashton Jeanty, by the way, went for 192 against this Oregon team in this building in week 2 of the season. So there's no reason for me to believe that Ohio State can't run the football against Oregon. If they did it against Iowa, if Jeanty was able to do it against Oregon, it is plausible, and I would say even likely, that Ohio State does well on the ground. If they do that, they win the game. I think Ohio State goes on the road and they get the win. Ohio State is favored by 3.5. I actually think they cover that 3.5. I like Ohio State something like 28, 22. 22 is an odd number. I know that, but remember, Oregon always will go for 2. at some point. And so they always kind of have those odd numbers in terms of their offense. So I like 28-22 Buckeyes getting the win on the road against Oregon. So that's a Buckeyes cover, by the way. Red River. I love this game. I really do. Texas favored by 14.5. How about that? That is a big line for a couple of teams that we thought highly of before the year. And clearly, one has done nothing but enhance what we think of them in Texas. And the other, they've done nothing but present questions about who they are, what they can be in Oklahoma. So Texas favored by 14.5 for the 120th edition of the Red River rivalry. I'm sorry. Like, it's the shootout. Like, guys, like what? It's the Red River shootout. That's what it was in my childhood. Leave a comment below. All of you fans out there that grew up with this game, college football fans, do you like calling it the Red River rivalry or the Red River shootout? Because shootout is a lot better. I understand why they changed it. We don't need to get into all that stuff. Red River shootout, that's what we're going to call it. Oklahoma won it last year. They've won 5 of the last 6. That last year's game in the final minute was electric. There's no doubt. But Texas is expected to get Quinn Ewers back. So he had that shoulder injury, or excuse me, a midsection injury, and he is expected to play. But even if he doesn't play, I think that this line would only be like 10. It might go down a little bit towards Oklahoma if Arch had to play, but not by much. And that's because both of these guys can go out there and operate this offense at a very high level. Ewers is expected to play, though. He did practice almost all week. Here's my big question for this game. Is Oklahoma's offense going to be able to keep pace at all? The answer to that is no. Texas's defense is way too good. So OU's not going to be able to just roll out there and score a bunch of points. The only hope that they have is a similar game to what they played last year, where they took advantage of massive mistakes from Texas. Turnovers, red zone stops. There was a 4th and goal inside the 5. They forced 3 turnovers, had that 4th down stand, 4th and goal, and then they win the game having to come back to do it. I know that the Sooners defense is 4th in the country, but we're talking about Steve Sarkisian in Texas. They're going to come out there on fire. He always has a great game plan for these big games, and I believe Texas is going to be able to move the football, and they will be able to go and score some points. I don't trust Oklahoma to do the same. This is not an offense that I trust. Defense is very good, 4th in the country. Offense, nope, 121st in the country in total offense, and they're facing a defense in Texas that has allowed 3 touchdowns in 5 games. I don't see it, folks. I just don't see it. Texas is finally healthy at the running back position. They get a few guys back, including Jaden Blue. I love Colin Simmons, their edge rusher. He's the true freshman that comes in basically just on passing downs, and he's been electric. He's another one of these true freshmen that has surpassed the hype of what he was supposed to be coming in. He already has 4 sacks, and he only plays on passing downs. Again, I like OU's defense. They do not have enough on the offensive side to go win this game. You're not going to be able to turn Texas over enough like you did against Auburn. This is in the vein of a Tennessee game, and Tennessee should have beat them by more, to be quite frank with you. So I like Texas in this game. And by the way, splitting the fans 50-50 in the old Cotton Bowl is one of the great traditions in all of college football. I've gotten the absolute pleasure to call this game several different times with Gus. I love this game. The split down 50-50 is one of my favorite traditions. By the way, speaking of traditions, I know Jenny Taft, the All-American girl, she's ranked her top 10 college football traditions. That article is out there on foxsports.com right now, so go click it and check it out, because I'm sure I'm going to do this as well. I haven't seen it yet. I know that it's out there, and I'm sure Runnin' Ralphie is number 1, right, Jen? And if it's not, we might have problems. I'm certain she's going to put Jump Around on there from Wisconsin. I bet you the Iowa Wave is on there. I bet Dot in the Eye is on there. Maybe the Eagle flying around, the Sooner Schooner. I could see that being on there. Go check her top 10 list out. That's on foxsports.com. So my pick for this game, Red River shootout this year, Texas, after last year losing this game, extra motivation. OU's terrible offense. I've got Texas winning this game 34-17, covering the 14.5. Give me the Longhorns. Let's go, Longhorns. Another massive one, and this one's going to be out here in LA, so some great West Coast games this year. Penn State comes out to face USC. Lost a little bit of luster when Lincoln Riley and USC lost to Minnesota last week. Let's just take a step back quickly and think about USC. USC legitimately is a broken tackle and probably that fourth quarter pick away from being undefeated, and this being a massive top 10 matchup. Those two plays go against them, and now all of a sudden you're fighting for your season. If you're USC, a third loss, and that does it. I'm concerned about the line of scrimmage for USC in this matchup specifically, because what Lincoln Riley should know after watching Penn State is that this team is a running team. They're going to come in and try to run the football, and they do it in a lot of different ways and very creatively. I really enjoy talking with and then watching and covering the offense of Penn State because of Andy Kotelnicki, their new offensive coordinator. And they're going to run the football. Last week, they held Nick Singleton out of that game against UCLA, namely to get him healthy for this week. I think he probably could have played last week if they absolutely needed him, and he didn't. So now he's going to be fresh for the Trojans. And they also have Katron Allen. They also have Tyler Warren. This is an offense that is very creative. The one thing that Penn State doesn't have right now is a true outside threat at wide receiver. What we've seen is a bit of production by committee from the Nittany Lions. We've seen Omari Evans. We've seen Trey Wallace, Tyler Warren, now Liam Clifford, all have 100-yard games at some point this year. So it's not that they can't throw the football. It's just that you don't have a guy out there that you can rely on and just be like, yep, I know I can get him the ball in a crucial situation, in particular, like let's say on like a third down. Those types of matchup wide receivers are so important in our sport. And they don't seem to have one of those. So they've got to do it with creativity. And they've been able to do that thus far. Remains to be seen whether they can do that now in what I would call a matchup game. When I say matchup game, folks, I mean like talent across from you on the opposite sideline, because that's not always the case in college football. So Penn State's going to travel all the way out here to face USC. It's the first matchup since that really good Rose Bowl. Remember that one back in 2016? What was it? 52-49 USC. Saquon went off, but USC came back. Sam Darnold, that was a great game. I look at this. I fear for USC that they're not going to be stout enough on the line of scrimmage, and the turnover issues are wreaking havoc on their season. They've had now 2 against Michigan, they lost the game. 3 against Wisconsin, they came back and won the game, but they were down at one point. 3 against Minnesota, that leads to a loss. If they turn the football over, they will lose. You will lose. That's the facts of it. That's the number one issue USC has right now, even more so than their line of scrimmage. Like they can be okay. They'll be okay as long as they don't turn the football over. As soon as you start turning the football over, you'll lose. The one area, by the way, if you're just looking at this game, the one area for Penn State that I would be leery of, kicking game. If this comes down to a kick, they have really struggled in the kicking game. They've had to replace their kicker, and so now you've got bad kicking game for Penn State. You've got the turnover issues for USC. If any of those rear their ugly head, then that team will lose the game. I like Penn State in this game. I like the fact that they can rely on a run game. They can rely on an offensive line that is playing very cohesive. By the way, Miller Moss has not been protected all that well this year. We saw LSU get after that offensive line. We saw Michigan get after that offensive line. And now coming to town is a team in Penn State, regardless of coordinator, Manny Diaz or Tom Allen, that leads college football in sacks over the last 3 years. Adisa Isaac, Denai Dennis Sutton. These guys can rush the quarterback, and I fear that Miller Moss is going to be under pressure. That leads to turnovers, and so I got Penn State in this one, in a tight one. I do think it's going to be a really good game. I've got Penn State winning it 20-17. Now, caveat, Penn State's favored by 4.5. I think it's closer than that. Penn State wins this one 20-17. USC covers at home. Let's go down to the SEC. Really good one. Ole Miss at LSU. This is going to be Death Valley at night. LSU coming off of a bye. Good luck, Ole Miss. LSU has won the last 7 in this matchup in Baton Rouge. These are 2 of the top 10 scoring offenses in the country, and now you get at night the opportunity for those fans to really make an impact in the game, which they always do. This is, again, one of the great environments in college football. We've got Autzen this weekend. We've got Red River Shootout this weekend. And we've got Death Valley night game in what is a pretty high-level ranked matchup. Number 9, Ole Miss. Number 13, LSU. I'm starting to become a big fan of this LSU team. I like Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's a really good player. You look up at this, and Nussmeier has been outstanding. Dart has as well. But Nussmeier, there's something about Nussmeier that I just like, and I can't put my finger on it on the film. It's not very flashy. There's a bottom line proposition in quarterback play. And I think that you've heard me say this before, but it's like, is the ball on time and on target? And with Nussmeier, generally speaking, that's the case. And it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat. You know, I mean, they have a USC in that opener, and they let it get away, and now they're a one-loss team. I will say Ole Miss has played well on defense, at least last week. After that loss to Kentucky, they rolled out there, only gave up 3 against South Carolina. So Nussmeier and that Tigers offense, they do have their work cut out for them. Ole Miss has got some injury problems. Don't like that for them. Wide receiver out, defensive lineman out. The kid that's a Florida transfer that is incredibly difficult to pronounce his name, Princely. He's missed last week's game. I know that LSU lost Harold Perkins a few weeks ago, but remember, Brady Swinson has stepped up at the edge. He puts pressure on the quarterback. He's got 5 sacks this year. Now you're at home. Now you're at night. I like LSU in this one. I think that Ole Miss, there was something revealed to me in that Kentucky game, and that's the fact that they're just not ready. They've had a great couple of years under Lane Kiffin, and they've gotten good win totals, but it's one thing to have good seasons, and it's another thing to put yourself on the level in your conference. And as much as I like Lane, as much as I like their roster, and even a veteran quarterback in Jackson Dart, they have not shown that they can put themselves, what I would say, on the level. Okay, this is a game that you have to win if you wanted to be on the upper tier level in the SEC. This game is going to be huge in who will actually represent the SEC in the SEC championship game. You watch, like, we're going to be looking back on this one, and we're going to be thinking to ourselves, like, wow, is LSU really just a one-loss SEC team? And you're like, wow, yeah, I guess they are. Maybe that loss is to Texas A&M, which just allows Texas A&M to get into the SEC championship game. Like I said yesterday, if you didn't listen yesterday, go back, watch the show, listen to the show. I brought up some wild scenarios that are entirely plausible and possible in this college football season. Back to this game. Ole Miss is favored by 3.5. Don't like that at all. Ole Miss on the road at night in Death Valley. LSU coming off a bye. Injury concerns for Ole Miss. This is an LSU win for me all day long. I even had to tighten up the score just because I'm like, wait, is that line real? Is Ole Miss really favored? I've got LSU in this ball game, fairly high scoring, 35-31. Tigers at home. Give me that Death Valley night environment for the win. Last game here, Kansas State at Colorado. Kansas State is favored by 4.5, and this game all of a sudden becomes a massive game in the Big 12. The winner of this game is in the catbird seat to get themselves into the Big 12 championship game. And remember, Kansas State already has a loss to the undefeated BYU team that I'm going to see this week as they play Arizona and Provo. If Colorado wins this game, it's not even possible, it's likely that they go to the Big 12 championship game. Because at their best, Kansas State has shown that they're the best team in the conference. At their best. So if you can beat Kansas State, even at home, which this game's in Boulder, then that proves that you can beat anybody. Now, whether they do that or not remains to be seen, clearly. But I think everybody can admit that this game is a massive game in terms of who's going to go to the Big 12 championship game. Why does this matter so much? Because then you're 60 minutes away from the playoff. Again, that's why the expanded playoff is so phenomenal in college football. These games are huge implications in the Big 12 race. K-State's loss was against BYU. By the way, in that game, they gave up a defensive touchdown and a special teams touchdown. It was a wild night in Provo. Both teams coming off a bye, so you're going to expect them to get more healthy. Speaking of health, you're going to have a rested Travis Hunter for Colorado. You're going to have Shiloh Sanders probably back after that broken forearm. Not foreign arm. He doesn't have a foreign arm. He just has a broken forearm. Okay, it's somewhat early. Kansas State, they've got a great rushing attack. This is, to be honest, as an alum, kind of my fear for Colorado is that Avery Johnson can run the football. Dylan Edwards can run the football. Dylan Edwards facing his old team in that stadium. Like, Kansas State has a lot to it now. I like them defensively. I like Avery Johnson. This is a team that I kind of believe in. And they're going up against a Colorado team that showed growth against UCF. Remember, I did a whole dissertation on this. They changed up some of their offensive personnel philosophy, and it paid huge dividends against UCF. They went to 11 personnel, which is a tight end and a tailback. One back, one tight end. And with 11 personnel, you can do a lot more in the run game. Namely, you can start to pull and run gap schemes, not just zone schemes. It's really tough to run gap schemes out of 10 personnel, which is one back, no tight ends, because there's no edge player. So you're reducing the width of the defensive front, and then when you start to pull, you reduce it even more, and it's really tough to control the backside edge unless your quarterback is a runner, which Shedeur Sanders is not. So they correctly, under Deion Sanders, go to 11 personnel, and it made a huge difference against UCF. If they can continue to be effective running the football, and I'm not saying they've got to be a juggernaut on the ground, I'm just saying be effective running the football, control backside defenders, create width to the defensive front, create conflict on the linebackers, then what happens is Shedeur Sanders is more protected when they want to throw the football. When he's protected, he becomes a nightmare to defend, because they've got one of the best receiver cores in the country. Jimmy Horn, Will Shepard, LeJounte Wester, and of course, Travis Hunter. They've got elite players on the outside, and if you give Shedeur a little bit of time, he will hurt you. Kansas State, if they can't get to Shedeur Sanders, they will give up a lot of points because that passing game is an elite passing game. It all comes down to the run game for Colorado. I know that sounds crazy, but if they can just do enough on the ground, then they'll be able to throw the football. My concern for their defense, however, is they try to play into Travis Hunter's hands by playing man coverage on the outside. Guess what? He's really the only guy on that team that should be in man coverage. The other guys are not fast enough to be in man coverage. They get hurt a lot in man coverage. In fact, I saw them play more zone against UCF, and that helped. That helped take away easy, quick throws, which allowed the defensive front to get home and pressure the quarterback. All of this has to work in conjunction, okay? So now Kansas State comes to town. They can run it a little bit. You're going to have to commit more resources to stopping the run, which leads to man coverage, which leads to quick throws. And it also leads to the defense losing the quarterback and contain, and Avery Johnson can kill you because he is excellent on the outside. Sunshine can absolutely run the football. So where are you going with this, Klatt? Kansas State is favored by 4.5. Don't like that. I've got Kansas State winning on the road. I'm trying to be impartial here. 21-20. They get the win. Colorado covers. I like Avery Johnson. I like Kansas State. I think they're the best team in the Big 12 right now. Now, if Rising comes back for Utah, then we can have a question. If BYU's defense continues to play the level that they're playing, then we can have a question and a conversation. If Colorado beats Kansas State, Colorado becomes, listen, and this is not hyperbole, a favorite to get to the Big 12 championship game. That's just the reality of the size and scope of this game in Boulder. It is a massive game in Boulder, and that's a late one. All right, that'll do it for our previews. Listen, enjoy the game, everybody. Don't go to a wedding. Don't go to a wedding. That would be idiotic. Again, guess what's more important than going to a wedding? Be there for that couple a year from now or 2 years from now. When they like call you and they're like, hey, we're kind of struggling. Go to dinner with them then. Buy them dinner then. Help them through a rough patch. Wedding. I got to be honest. Weddings are dumb. And they're overpriced. And everyone forgets about it. So, leave your comment below. If you hate that, love that, I don't know. Red River rivalry, Red River shootout, which one is it? Comments now. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.